So this guy, he's been on my feed for a while. His channel's bald and broke. I like that. So he's talking about the harsh reality of getting older, and so it's a warning for anyone that's over 50. I'm only 40, and I think that this is applicable for me because I was 38 or 39 when I started to really think about my future in a way that I hadn't before. I was really contemplating getting older and what that would be like and thinking about my own mortality because I'm already halfway there. And I was thinking, what is my life going to look like? How is my body going to hold up? What kind of situation would I be in financially? And I also started thinking about who would actually be there at the end of my life. And yeah, people they call it a midlife crisis. That's pretty common, but I don't really like that term. It seems a bit dismissive and oversimplifies it. Yeah, I'm midlife and I'm having a crisis, but it's existential. It's really heavy, and I think that term midlife crisis it sounds like it makes it sound like something's wrong with you when it's not. There's nothing wrong with you. Some switch flips and you start paying attention to things that you didn't before and really think through things. You start seeing time differently and you start realizing that certain outcomes, they're not guaranteed. So I'm really curious to see what he has to say about getting older because he looks like he's possibly in his late 50s, early 60s.
At 61, I spend my days taking
61.
care of seniors. I see the good stories and the heartbreaking ones up close. And if I'm honest, a lot of the time, I'm scared that I'm really looking at my own future. I'm not retired. I'm not set. And starting over this late in the game feels like playing life on hard mode. Some of the people I work with have had big careers and big houses, and still they ended up alone, broke, and forgotten. Others have almost nothing, and yet they seem more at peace than I am. So this isn't a how to age perfectly video. This is just me telling you what I see every day and what scares me about getting old, and why I think people our age need to wake up now before we become the ones sitting in those chairs.
Dude, just thinking about a retirement home. I mean, I've been in them before. The way that they smell, it's awful. And old people are just treated like shit a lot of the time there. And I just don't see how there's any... The quality of life just doesn't seem great. It seems awful. You hear a lot about elder abuse, and this guy's been witnessing what it's like for 15 years. And so he's probably got a very vivid picture of what his life is potentially going to look like. He said he's not ready to retire. I'm not ready to retire. I'm 40, and even my parents aren't ready to retire. A lot of people are not set. And then also you got to think about the economy. The economy is a dumpster fire. The dollar probably won't exist in 5 or 10 years. So there are a lot of uncertainties going on in the world right now that leave a lot of people scared of what kind of world they're growing older in. What kind of world are they going to die in? What kind of tyranny are they going to be surrounded by and dictated by? And also, as a dad, I'm terrified of the kind of world that my son's going to grow up in. And I know that a lot of you dads out there, you feel the exact same way because I don't like what I see right now, and I'm not seeing it getting better. I'm only seeing it getting worse. So there's just, like I said, there's a lot of uncertainty that we're dealing with right now. And to pile on the idea of getting older, It is terrifying for me.
Yeah, I'm really saying this. When I first started doing this work, I felt a combination of shock and sadness. I've been working with seniors now for 15 years in various capacities. And seeing people who were once very independent, wealthy, sometimes powerful, now needing help to just do the most mundane, simplest tasks for people like you and I, it's a wake-up call, and it's very shocking. Some of the things I notice are the loss of independence. You know, the older we get and the less physically able we become, from the smallest things like brushing our teeth to taking a shower to being able to go out and walk, being able to get up from a chair, being able to get dressed in the morning, to get undressed. Now, it doesn't happen to everyone. I know people in their 90s who are as sharp as a tack, and I know one person who's still working in his 90s. So it doesn't happen to everyone, but it happens to a lot of us.
Dude, the idea of work, that's the thing, is a lot of people, they're going to be working until they die. That's the unfortunate reality, that people will be working a job when they are in their 70s and 80s and 90s. They won't, retirement isn't on the table for a lot of people. That's scary, to think that you are just going to be tax cattle until the end. And that's what you start thinking about in your late 30s and early 40s. At least I did. And losing your independence, losing your strength, your mobility, needing help with basic things like going to the bathroom, taking a shower. It seems getting older, you're afraid of being in a dehumanizing situation, because that's what happens when a lot of people get dumped in these retirement homes, in these old folks homes, is they're there to be ignored and collect dust until they die. And they die alone, they die miserable, they die on the toilet. It's just, that's the reality for a lot of people, and you don't want that to be your reality, but you don't know.
But then there's also fear. It's the fear that there goes myself at some point in time. And then there's
Right.
the vulnerability. The older we get, as we lose our independence, we become much more vulnerable and much more susceptible to unsavory characters in our lives and in the world. I see people every day who are clearly struggling physically, financially, and emotionally. You know, they say old age is supposed to be the golden years. And maybe for some people it is. But I dare to say for many it's not. The thing that really terrifies me the most is the version of old me. That's the most terrifying thing.
Yeah, I mean, losing who you are as a person, that's terrifying. Losing what made you you, and trying to picture what the old version of you is going to be, what that's going to look like. And like you said, you can fall victim to unsavory characters like elder abuse. That's something that's very common in old folks homes. And you get treated like garbage. A lot of them they get neglected, they get beaten, they get abused, and left in their diapers or whatever, eating jello, and it seems awful. And that's the thing, is a lot of people aren't going to be retiring, they're going to be working. How are you going to work if you're in this mental state of decline? And then you think about, will I end up being homeless? Will I be one of those old people that ends up on the streets and dies on the streets? There's so many different avenues that it could go down, different directions that it could go. And that's something that I think about. I don't know. Do you think about that? I don't know.
Because old me, and I feel like I'm getting closer and closer by the day. Well, I am. We all are. But the version of old me is an unknown, because none of us know what we'll be like when we're in our 70s, 80s, and beyond. Being alone in a small room with no visitors, the thought of that is terrifying.
That's the fear. It's being alone in a small room and nobody comes to see you. It's living in that tiny room. You're old and you're declining, but you still have enough cognitive ability to realize that you're alone and nobody cares about you. That's the fear.
Quite frankly. You know, I remember my uncle was in a nursing home, and it wasn't local to where any of the family lived for some odd reason. So I remember going to visit him one Christmas day, and that had to be the most depressing experience of my life. Not only seeing him in a small room with fluorescent lights and a tiny window overlooking a parking lot. Not only that, but seeing all the other residents of that nursing home with no family, no visitors. Yeah, there were some activities going on because it was Christmas Day. Maybe a small 18-inch Christmas tree at the nurse's station. But I don't think that's what old age should be for any of us. It's not so much our physical surroundings where we are, where we're living, where we're located, but it's the lack of family and friends. Something else that scares me about growing old is being physically weak and dependent upon strangers.
Yeah, I'm afraid of that since I've broken both of my hips before the age of 40 and two separate bike accidents. I mean, I walk fine now, but I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to, if I'll need hip replacements or end up in a wheelchair. I have no idea, or need some type of living assistance or some type of like railing or one of those stair elevator chairs. I have no idea. Just all of the thought of getting old is terrifying.
I don't want to be physically weak and have to have strange people in some facility helping me from everything from getting dressed to going to the bathroom. That's a terrifying thought, and yet it's a reality for many of us. There were so many moments at work when I thought, this could be me. And that happens almost every day. And this messes with your head when you clock out at 5 o'clock and you go home and you start thinking about all the people that can't really go home that are still in that facility. It really gets into your head. I remember times leaving work and sitting in the car and just staring out the window blankly, feeling a little numb. The hard truth about money and doing everything right changes as we get older. I know seniors who did everything right. They saved money, they had 401k plans, they put money away in all kinds of different insurance plans, and yet they still ended up struggling in their old age. I never saved money. I have no 401k plan. I never thought I'd be 61, 62 years old. It feels like just last week I was 47.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm 40, and this guy's 61. He felt like last week he was 47. That's 7 years away. It's less. I'm going to be 41 this year. That's how fast aging becomes when you get older. It even. I feel like it goes even quicker when you have kids. But just, and like you said, you can do everything right and still end up struggling. And it's really hard to do everything right now. I don't have a 401k. Sure, plenty of people do, but it might be worthless by the time the economy tanks. So a lot of people might lose their 401k. So all of you dudes that would want to like pile on me and say, "Ha, you idiot, you don't have a 401k, you need to think blah blah." Well, dude, it's very likely that our currency will lose its reserve status, its global reserve status, and go to zero within our lifetime. And everyone's 401ks could be wiped out. I can see that happening. So, and then right now, geopolitically, things aren't looking so hot. I mean, there's so many potentials for the next year. Decades happen in a year now. So it's just crazy to think about.
The time flies. And if we only live in the present moment and don't think of that future, the future will devour us at some point in time. I've made plenty of mistakes. I wish I had saved money when I was young and thought about the future. You know how we hear, put away money for a rainy day? Well, I never believed none of that. I thought that was crazy. And here I am at 62 years old almost, and I'm on the brink of old age, and I'm not going to be able to retire. And my fear is that I will also wind up alone and broke and dependent upon other people. And out of all those things, the worst part is to be dependent upon others to take care of you.
Right. First off, being just feeling like a burden, like you're the family that's still alive, maybe your son, your daughter, they just throw you in a nursing home and then forget about you. That's a fear. And having to be dependent on people that you don't even know, that probably don't even like you just because you're old and it's just their job.
We all want to age gracefully and be independent through our whole lives. That's our goal, I think. That's everyone's goal. The problem is we don't really think about it until it happens to us. I didn't think about it until lately. And then there's the lie we were all sold. If you just work hard, everything will be okay. You'll be fine. But that's not true. Now that I'm seeing reality up close, working hard was not the answer. Working smart was the answer. So now I want to talk about the things that really matter. I mentioned earlier the happy seniors, those who really seemingly have nothing. What the happier seniors tend to have in common is they have one or two close relationships. It doesn't have to be necessarily a family member. It could be a friend. It could be a fellow senior in the same facility. But they have those one or two very close relationships. They have a reason to get up in the morning. Something else I notice about the happy seniors is there's a certain level of acceptance, and they're not pretending. They understand their situation and their ailments as they progressively age, but they've accepted it. And they're not letting it ruin their days left. They're not letting it ruin their time.
I think getting to that level of acceptance is going to be really hard for a lot of people. I know it's going to be hard for me. And that's a tricky part about getting older. As you get in your 40s, things start to hurt. And it's hard to accept that I can't do the same things that I could do when I was 20. I really miss riding my bike, but some of that's on me because I got into accidents and broke bones. But either or, I mean, if that happened to you too, then you understand. If not, but still, that's just a part of getting older. Things just don't work the way they you can really start to see the decline in your late 30s. You get a glimpse. It's like your young phase is now over, and now you're entering into this new chapter of just accelerating age acceleration, and it just every year gets a little worse. So, and it you got maybe a thing or two that's weird, that's off, and then the next year it just keeps compounding and triples and quadruples.
Something else that I've noticed about the happy seniors, and this is probably the biggest one of all, they have religion. They have a faith in a higher being, a higher calling. No matter what religion they are, they have faith. And I think that faith carries them through the hard times. And that's probably the biggest one of all. You know, there comes a point when stuff doesn't really matter as much as it once did. Fancy cars, big houses, yada, yada, yada. Your perspective changes on what's really important. Maybe what's important to some people is a good cup of coffee in the morning. Maybe what's important to some people is a sunny day. And those are the truly happier people that I've seen in both seniors and younger people. You know.
Yeah, I think as I've gotten older, I really enjoy the simple things. I like just staying at home in my joggers and comfy clothes, just with the heater going, eating some nice food, watching a movie, playing some Fortnite, hanging out with my son, just very simple things. And sure, a fancy car would be cool, but eventually that becomes your new baseline. Whatever new toy you get, it's going to be cool for a couple of weeks or a month, and then it's whatever. But the things that you really care about, the things you really think about, the things that you will think about on your deathbed are going to be those people that you love and those simple things. You're not going to be thinking about your Porsche 911 unless that's what you're dying in. But I mean, I'd rather go out in a ball of flames in a Porsche 911 than in a freaking nursing home. That's for dang sure. I hate facilities. I hate them.
Now, working with seniors has forced me to look deep into my own life and my own future. At 61, starting over, not where I thought I'd be, but where I can be happy no matter where I am. And you know, there's always that internal tug of war of fear versus hope. We hope things will be okay, but we're afraid they won't. And that's just
Right.
part of being human, and I believe that affects everyone. Some days I feel like it's too late. Other days I think, no, not yet. If you're between the ages of 50 and 70 watching this, I'm talking directly to you. I want you to think about who will visit you when you're old. What will a normal day look like for you at 80? Are you building that life now or hoping that it magically appears? I want to know. I want to hear about it. Please leave a comment. And you don't have to be optimistic. Just be real. So by now you probably figured out I don't have a 10-step plan on how to age gracefully. I'm just a 61-year-old guy starting over, getting a front row seat to what's coming if we don't pay attention. If any of this hits you, you're not alone. I'm scared too, but I think talking about it is better than pretending it's never going to happen.
I like this guy. I really do. That's my philosophy as well. It's worth talking about. And I like how he said, he's like, you don't have to be optimistic, just be real. That is cool. Go ahead, go check this guy out. Bald and Broke. I'll leave it down below, the link down below, so you can check out his other stuff. It looks like he has a little over 4,000 subs. So yeah, go support his channel. Show him some love in the comment section. But yeah, I really like this. This is the kind of topic that most people, they avoid, because what it does is it forces you to think about things that you just that are difficult. It's a dark truth. You can't ignore them forever. And I get it. It's easier just to focus on the present and just save the future for later and just assume that the future will take care of itself. And before you know it, though, the future is the present. And yeah, at a certain point, I mean, I'd say it's just that way of thinking, it works until it doesn't. It works in the moment, right? But I think it's important to start seeing where your current decisions are leading you and do an audit of that. I think that will change how you look at everything in your life moving forward. And I think that more men, I think it's about 17% of my audience are in the age range that he's talking about. But I think that more men in their late 30s and 40s need to think about this. They're going through an existential crisis, and I think it's something that needs to be talked about openly. And you really need to, like I said, do an audit of your life, see where you're at, and say the uncomfortable things out loud. Talk about it. If you have any friends, talk about it with them. See what they think. I think it's important for people to, I mean, I talk about this with some of my friends. We talk about this together, and that does help. We both joke around about, God, it would suck. I hope we both don't die alone in a old folks home. I think it would be awesome, right, if you at least have your best friend by your side. I find it weird just making a friend in the nursing home. I hope I don't end up in a nursing home, and I hope that you don't either. I hope none of us end up in nursing homes, but of course some of us will. And that's the sad reality. But yeah, I mean, if this is something you've been thinking about, dude, you ain't alone, man. I'm right there with you. I think about it all the time. And it's a scary thought. I mean, you look at Bruce Willis, grew up watching his movies, and now he's gotten older. Now he doesn't even recall any of that. I don't want that to be me. I don't want to end up having Alzheimer's or being senile. That's the last thing that I want, is to be a senile old man that doesn't know where he is, pissing himself, being taken care of by a bunch of strangers in a facility. That's not what anybody wants. And that's just the reality. That's just what we're all going through right now. Just all of us people that think deeply, at least. I'm sure there's a lot of brain dead people out there that aren't thinking about this. Maybe they are now after they watch this video. But either way, guys, love you guys. And yeah, take care. I'll see you on the next one.